Greetings from America. My name is Dr. Mark Williams. I'm excited and proud to be at the DGC KSA conference. I had the wonderful opportunity presenting on an amazing panel, Esports Gaming and Education, with two of my esteemed colleagues, Michael Babb and Kofi Lazo. And we talked about esports and gaming, not just in America, but also internationally. I learned a lot, and I'm excited to talk about the KSA, and it's just Saudi Arabia is just leaps and bounds are just doing some amazing things. But before we talk about that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Mark Williams. I'm a global scholar practitioner at Florida Memorial University in South Florida, in Miami, Florida. And basically, that's a historically black college. Historically black colleges and universities were founded in 1854. And the very first college was Cheney University. So there's about 102 historically black colleges and universities in America. And I just happened to be at one that was founded in 1879. I'm very excited by having the opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, the video game industry and also esports. My background is in sports marketing. I spent a number of years at Reebok, athletic retailer Foot Action, and also athletic retailer Champ Sports. Champ Sports and Foot Action, they're a division of Foot Locker, which is the largest athletic retailer in the world. I also had the opportunity to work very closely with the publishers and video game industry when I was in corporate America, and I was able to do product placement in over 50 video games. In addition to that, my PhD is also in education leadership, but it's in curriculum. So I also have the ability to write curriculum, and I've done a lot of that in America, and I work very closely with the Department of Education in America. So now I have my background in sports marketing, working with endemic and non-endemic brands, working closely with the publishers and the video game industry. And I also have the opportunity to be able to talk to a lot of great leaders around the world about what they're doing with gaming and esports. And I work closely with the Department of Education in America. And I'm now working as a global scholar practitioner for a historically black college. In addition to that, I'm also the commissioner of a brand new esports league called the Yard Esports Alliance, HBCU Esports Alliance. So that's a lot to unpack. But I want to introduce to you a dear friend of mine who's also in Miami and also very closely tied to this topic we're going to talk about today. My man, Stephan, can you tell him a little bit about your background and who you are and why you decided to come on to talk about this amazing topic today?
Yeah, right on. No, I appreciate the tee up, although that's an incredibly difficult act to follow. So I'll try to do my best. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephan Henrik. I'm the founder and managing director for an integrated marketing firm by the name of Ludus House. We're a full stop integrated marketing firm providing creative strategy, digital media and production services to brands, properties, and creators, specifically within the realm of sports and entertainment. I come from a background over the last, I guess, almost 15 years now, working in sports and entertainment, representing the production side of the business, as well as the marketing and advertising side of the business, and you know, a myriad of roles within those respective realms, if you will, ranging from project management and you know, sales to leadership and strategic business development. So it's given me an opportunity to kind of get a bit of a well-rounded perspective of all the intricacies that kind of come together to make the ecosystems that we all love and get to enjoy. And I was thrilled when Mark reached out and asked if I might be interested in jumping on and you know, chatting all things esports, because it's definitely something I'm passionate about as well. So both for what we're doing now in esports and what the future can hold, not just for the world of gaming, but I think you know, when the notion of gaming technology becomes, you know, further and more ubiquitous than it already is. So with that said, I'll kick it back to you, Mark.
Yeah, one of the things that's fascinating about learning about Saudi Arabia, and one of the things that stood out to me first when I saw the Adidas deal that was signed, I was like, wow, Adidas, you know, non-endemic brand. And a lot of times in the gaming industry, video game industry, especially esports, there's this tug of war between the endemic brands and the non-endemic brands, and how does the video game industry, how do they come together and create that continuity? And then when I see a brand like Adidas, a German-based company, saying, "Hey, we want to partner with you. We're not just partnering with you because it looks good and because of optics. Partnering with you because we're looking at examining how do we attack and address the issues of wellness." As you know, back in the day, old school video game players, if you're playing your video game, it was almost like you're working 18 hours a day. You wanted to work really hard to show everybody that you did it and you overcame this. I'm working so hard. But now in 2020 and beyond, the new school, the people that are thinking more about health and wellness, we want to focus on our bodies and how we take care of ourselves. And you have so many different I'll say teams that are now doing that. But one of the caveats with the deal that they signed with Adidas was that they had to focus on health and wellness. What do you think about that how Adidas is now working hard to work with Saudi Arabia on addressing issues around obesity and making sure that people are feeling more fit and more healthy? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really quite interesting. One, obviously a huge player in the world of sport, and obviously esports plays a function of kind of the larger organism that is sport, media, and entertainment. So I think off the bat, it's a really, really interesting, I guess depending on who you ask, it may be non-endemic today, but will become an endemic brand, especially as health and wellness continues to become a topic of discussion in the world of esports. But to make a deal contingent upon those variables, right, health and wellness, to kind of encourage that and usher in a new standard for the way that teams train and prepare and take care of themselves, I think is really interesting, not just because of the market, right? So the kingdom, but also because the time, right? In a lot of ways, when you look at the States, you look at Europe, there's been a kind of a bit of a double dutch that's happened, I think, as the notion of esports, not necessarily gaming, but the notion of esports has evolved, obviously really kind of stepping into notoriety in Europe, and still to this day, some of the biggest, events in the world happen in Europe from an esports perspective. The US kind of taking it, and I'd argue, much like traditional sports, found a way to commercialize it and create more dollars, if you will, rather than it being just kind of about the purest activity, right? Like whatever the game is itself that's being played. And then, I think through those things probably bred along the way, some unhealthy behaviors. And there's been a bit of a game shift, not game shift, but no pun intended there, but of a mind shift, if you will, in the way that people train and get ready for what it is that they do, moving away from like references that you see in Grandma's Boy, a famous kind of cult classic movie, to you look at the teams of today and tomorrow that consider mental performance, that consider health and wellness, reaction time, and obviously sleep and good nutrition is a huge part of that. Ask any, prominent athlete out there, whether it's gaming or whether it's something, it's motorsport or physical or team sport. In kind of a different realm. So I think that's really interesting to kind of step into the world with that already being an expectation, and then so much shedding the stigma associated with coming up through gaming, right? And maybe some of the unhealthy habits that were a part of the mix at the time.
And one of because I want to talk about two things, because you talked about the health and wellness, you talked about, kind of hinted about the COVID piece. We're going to dive into that. But one of the things that I find fascinating, when you look at America, you look at teams that are, Complexity, the oldest team in North America, FaZe Clan, Cloud9, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves. I mean, they all have, they've all invested in making sure that people are taking care of mind, body, and soul. Do you see that as a trend that's going to happen globally, or do you think that that's just happening in certain parts of the world? And what are your thoughts about that?
It's a really good point. I would probably argue that, yeah, well, first off, yes, to answer your question, yes, I think that's a bit of a global trend. I think as you look at new generations, there's probably a greater emphasis on taking care of one's body. I mean, hence, you look at vegetarianism and veganism here in the United States, right? And how that continues to kind of grow in an upward trend, right? I was a vegetarian 10 years ago, still a vegetarian, but being a vegetarian 10 years ago was much more difficult than it is today, just because of the sheer number of people that have made it a priority in their life. And I think that culturally, globally, that is, right, the notion of taking care of yourself because it's going to translate to not just better performance, but longevity in life, I think is a priority that we're seeing, kind of permeate down into different cultures. Obviously, it takes on a different a flair. It looks different. It kind of manifests itself different within each of these global communities. But I think the overarching sense that, you take care of yourself and it'll reciprocate that, your body will reciprocate that, is definitely something that's a bit of a global trend.
Yeah, one of the things that I find interesting also is the ability for people to have access, right? Like in America, it costs like $300 to buy an Xbox, for example, right? So a lot of inner city kids might buy the Xbox or the PlayStation, but if you really have money, the PC is $2,200, maybe more. Most people don't have that kind of disposable income. If you live in the rural, rural communities, they may get the PC, so they gotta have access to the world. But you look at Saudi Arabia, for example. I know that I think you and I were talking about the numbers of young people purchasing or playing esports because of the weather, also COVID. What that played a role in them quadrupling the amount of sales in that region. Why do you think that was?
Well, I mean, look, I'm certainly not going to deem to be the expert on the kingdom, but I agree completely, in just some, surface level, research in the interest of really kind of understanding the things that are happening in the kingdom. We saw, right, that sales were something up like $650 million in revenues across mobile, online, and offline gaming. I think there was something like just under 6 million gamers in the kingdom, which is also really quite staggering, considering, its position within kind of the other parts of the global community that have kind of maybe organically been a part of the ecosystem of gaming earlier on. But there was a really interesting article. I want to say it was Vogue Men that talked about, gamers, players in the kingdom being 3 times more likely to invest in game media than their American and European counterparts, which is really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that the 2019 projected was 837 million, and they have the fastest growing rate, 22% in the world right now. So I mean, what do you think that to be? I mean, that's pretty high and significant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I'm sure the publishers and I'm sure the consumer electronics brands are all thrilled about it, just seeing that sort of growth. I think what's really interesting are some of the trends that could kind of help accelerate in the global community, right? As like these new standards are being set for adoption, that could push the global community to kind of rethink the rate at which they're either introducing new products or new IP to the marketplace, because people are kind of yearning for it, right? I mean, we're seeing that right now with a number of the publishers and the digital release of new titles or the expansion of new titles, some of the microtransactions that happen there, obviously with even within an existing title. There'll be different ways to kind of customize and personalize. And I think that it all kind of plays to that core desire of consumers, right, at the end of the day, to be able to see themselves reflected in whatever it is that they're doing, whether that be literally or whether that be, through, the brands or the colors or the style reference that they kind of hold dear to themselves, right? And to kind of have that be an opportunity to convert and create cash for the brands, I think is just going to continue to kind of feed into that. But I was definitely blown away that, again, that rate, year-over-year rate of increase, 22.5%. I mean, it's just pretty staggering.
And one of the things I find interesting too, not to be disrespectful towards Americans, but a lot of times we're not paying attention to what other nations are doing, but other nations are paying attention to us. How do you think we could do a better job as Americans to really embrace not just the European countries, but Southeast Asia, and Muslim countries, as well as African countries? The continent of Africa is also growing exponentially. Over almost 37 countries are actually really actively participant in esports, and even more so moving forward. But obviously mobile is king there. And so what do you think it's going to take for America to really start to partner and want to be part of those communities and be more understanding and paying attention to the trends there? What do you think we need to do more of? Is it collaboration like we do with the European countries? Is it more communication in terms of learning more about them, or is it sharing of ideas? What do you think it's going to take?
It's a good question. I would say, it's almost continuing what is happening, right? Like, I think some of the generational changes that we kind of alluded to with the emphasis on health and wellness is also there's a huge emphasis on globalization and being able to understand different cultures, different people from different cultures, the nuanced ways that we all kind of live and coexist around the world. And I think as new generations kind of continue to adopt that philosophy, and there's a shared interest in trying to understand thy neighbor, it's going to create a scenario where there's this cross-pollination of ideas that diversity does make everything better, right? It kind of enriches the soil, if you will, and makes kind of the output that much more fertile. I guess, not to bring it back to gaming, but gaming, the future of gaming in a lot of ways is empowering that sort of globalization, because everything's so interconnected, right? And as we start to look at the advent of virtual tech, right, and some of the ways that that's going to enter the conversation, Facebook has done some pretty remarkable things in terms of releasing new products at a price point that's going to make it that barrier to entry is a lot lower. It's going to make it a lot easier to adopt this technology and kind of bring it home when it comes to spatial imaging, spatial technology. And I think that convergence of kind of all the different pieces and parts, right? Like the IP, so really compelling stories and games, the technology, right? The consumer tech, Facebook, all the other console providers, the PC providers. When you look at, exactly. When you look at, I think just the convergence of all these organizations and focuses kind of coming together. I was going to say the infrastructure distracted me with the rig stuff, man. Get me excited, but
I had to do that. I got to represent rig. Shout out to my man Corey at Nacon. What's up, brother? I'm representing you guys always.
I think the infrastructure too, and that's a big part of it, right? Like, as the infrastructure continues to grow, that is going to be something that I think is going to enable this globalization more, right? Like 5G is obviously a topic of discussion. 5G itself is basically creating more lanes, creating an Autobahn, a global Autobahn for communication. So while that's really impressive and it's enabling the future, I think it's only really kind of enabling creativity, because then it's, okay, well, now we've got cars that can go faster and a lot more space to drive them on. What else can we do? What other sort of things can we imagine in the future that kind of involve integration with the larger community? I think, there are a lot of things that are going to contribute to that. I think it's really, really interesting, though. It's an exciting time, the world of gaming right now, just because of all the things that are going to come out of it. That may have nothing to do with gaming in the future, right? Medical services could be inspired by the technology and the capabilities of gaming that the capabilities of gaming today are kind of unlocking. So a lot to come out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to distract you. So
it's all good. I'm sorry to be long-winded about it.
I wasn't trying to distract you. I'm not a commercial for the rig, but this is pretty tough. But this is one of your presents here, brother. So you know that already.
You don't have to do
that. No, man. Yeah, I gotta give love. That's part of the relationships. Is the bond, and you bond over the games, or if you listen to music, you bond over the song, the music, or whatever it is. And music and entertainment and sport and now gaming, that brings people and culture together. So of course, I'm going to gift you. And you might say, hey, Mark, I found this. I'm going to gift you. And that's how we create these relationships. I found it fascinating. I was watching the Esports Awards, and I saw that the Game of the Year, Publisher of the Year, again, American Riot Games again wins that. And then, which I found fascinating, the content and the creative piece of the year, as far as introduction piece of the year, League of Legends European series. But this year, mobile game of the year, Southeast Asia, Free Fire game. Okay, so now we're getting closer to Saudi Arabia. We're getting closer to this region. How excited are you to know that the region is starting to get a lot of global play now? I mean, what do you think about that? And what do you see in the future for, let's say, Saudi Arabia and their place in terms of getting the respect globally that they so richly deserve?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I would just say this, I think, and this statement's probably true for, the Middle East as a whole, right? There's been a huge modernization, right? There's been an effort around modernizing the Arab world for quite some time now, right? Like you go back decades. But I think, definitely as it relates to entertainment and technology, that's probably something more recent, right? Largely because technology's kind of been this thing that's grown really, really quickly and just a few places in the world. And then it kind of became a global thing and expanded. And I think, kind of pulling on maybe the reference that I was talking about culturally around gaming and behavior going from Europe to the United States, I think when you look at entertainment in a lot of ways and the pomp and circumstance, right, the celebration, the magnitude of certainly the production value and the events when pulling kind of inspiration maybe from the UAE and some of the things that have been done in both Dubai and Abu Dhabi, it's pretty remarkable how they've been able to really kind of, claim stake to these magnificent events, both in sport and outside of sport. I think this is only going to be a continuation of that, right? The first step is making sure that people are kind of adopting the technology and want to be a part of this world. But as that continues to grow, it's going to be really interesting to see, it's going to be interesting to see the way that the Arab world kind of adds its flair to the global community from a gaming standpoint, from an esports standpoint, but specifically how the kingdom is going to be able to do that, just because of kind of the right mix, right? There's a lot of opportunity and time and energy spent in gaming right now. If we look at some of the stats, there's resources available, disposable income that's also kind of making a part of that kind of swift adoption of the technology, both and the IP itself. So I think it's only time will tell, but I'm certainly excited. Anytime technology, and gaming culture is kind of accelerated and doing new things, it certainly gets me pumped up. So I'm definitely excited for what's coming out of the kingdom right now.
Yeah, then also there's this company Robocom that's really focusing on VR now and creating the first ever certified esports academy. I mean, I'm just like, what is going on? And Neom, I mean, everybody knows that that's like the standard. And then some people are like, man, you need to go out there and teach. Hint, 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 hint. Yes, we both could come out there and teach. We would love to come to the region. Absolutely.
Soft plug.
Yeah, soft plug, exactly. And I'm bringing the rig with me too. You know what I'm saying? I represent. So yeah, I mean, tell me what do you think about that? Because in America, let's break this down. In America, you have closely right now, you have about 500 schools that have varsity teams, which means they can get scholarships to play esports. It's not a lot. There's about 4,000 schools in America, right? But there's 500. That's it. 500 are doing that. When it comes to the academic side, it might be about 75 schools. I mean, you have schools like Shenandoah, schools like UCI, Ohio State, and obviously, you've got Becker College, the first school to ever have a business major. Well, actually, an esports major. 2017, I believe they started it.
That's
and then
awesome.
You have the HBCUs. Like my school, Florida Memorial, You have Johnson C. Smith. You have the University of Virgin Islands is getting ready to look at creating something. And we now have our esports league. You have a number of esports league emerging from the HBCUs. You have the Collegiate Star League in America. I mean, there's so many different types. You have NACE, right? There's so many different entities. You have the ECAC. And I'm curious to know, what do you think about what's happening in Saudi Arabia in terms of the academic side? Because I also think that that's a wonderful opportunity for them to expand as well, especially when you start looking at the VR now in that region. They're so far ahead of the game. It's not even funny. What do you think the future is in terms of academically bringing that piece of it to the region as well?
Yeah, so actually there is, I was looking up while you were talking, a part of an article that I was reading, actually, I think it was in Vogue Man, the same one that we were talking about earlier. A gentleman by the name of Sari El Jeffrey, big gamer in the kingdom and representing the kingdom, won some tournaments back in 2018, and he provided some commentary, I think, on being able to make esports a bit more sustainable. And what was interesting was it kind of reminds me, I think, some of the challenges that we've seen in the US and maybe as of late have started to really kind of combat as we're trying to build an infrastructure to support how to go from kind of, an aspiring gamer to what has, depending on who you ask, been somewhat of a volatile kind of professional ranking system because it's inconsistent and there's no real clear path for one to go from aspiring gamer to a professional gamer to kind of accomplishing that goal. He kind of cites that as one of the biggest challenges that Saudi Arabia has ahead of itself. So I would say, anything that, Collegiate Star League, right? Soft plug there. Some of the great things that are happening that you've been working with those guys on from an HBCU standpoint, I think is a great roadmap. Obviously, there are nuances there. Every country is going to kind of have to adopt what they do differently, right? The NCAA, from a sports standpoint, isn't going to necessarily translate appropriately across the world, right? Every country has their own nuanced way to do whatever it is that they've got to do. But I think to answer that call for clear path from I play pretty well, or even better, maybe I want to join kind of a rec league and be trained the same way that I can if I'm playing, football, right? International football, soccer, as we call it here in the United States, to becoming a professional player. There is a bit of a clear path there, right? Or at least a sense of how you achieve it. You've got to do this and you've got to do that and so on and so forth. And there isn't any sort of program to be able to showcase that and or regulate how people are getting paid, from what I understand in Saudi Arabia. So I think creating an infrastructure to support that would probably be a huge service, not just to the kingdom, but really the global community, because I think we need as many innovative minds coming together to invent that, right? To establish what that looks like as possible. Because it'll especially as global sport and global esports continues to be a topic of discussion.
Yeah, Prince Mohammed, he created this concept NEOM, and it's like a new future, a new beginning, and a way of creating just a collectivity of a living lab of innovation. They have that there in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. In a way that I'm trying to think of any place in America that has something like that. And I'm thinking, I can't think of any. I think of the combination of places that have those things, but I don't know. I'm really impressed with what they're doing in Saudi Arabia. And
what's really interesting about that, though, and sorry to interrupt you, is just this idea that at the end of the day, that's kind of done in the interest of the greater good, and not to kind of poke holes at kind of the American way of doing things, but in a lot of instances, it's been, if we can't necessarily commercialize it, then maybe we shouldn't be doing it. And that's both a blessing and a curse, because dollars come to it, right? And then, but then there are sometimes selfish desires around how you achieve what you need to achieve. Whereas something like that, which sounds kind of a lot like a kind of a tech, an innovation, incubator, right? Or an accelerator, I think is is again a great contribution, not just to the community within the kingdom, but really the global community, because they're kind of they're setting priorities up around how to kind of expand those efforts, how to expand that adoption. Anyways, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No. I'm just, I'm excited about, the possibilities. I'm grateful and blessed to have this wonderful opportunity. Thanks Steph and his team and his crew for providing us this platform to talk. I mean, we could talk for days about this. And the interesting part is that, imagine if we're talking to someone from Saudi, because we're two Americans talking, all right? So imagine, this is our perspective. So imagine if we had a Saudi brother or sister talking to us about it and their perspective and how excited they are. I mean, I can't even imagine where the conversation will go. I mean, we could talk for days. And we just two Americans, a black, an African-American, and a white brother, from America, who's a brother from another mother, my man.
That's right.
So we're talking. So imagine if we did have a conference or we did have a Zoom session. We're looking forward to it. We're excited. And so we just want to say thank you for inviting us to the DGC KSA conference. We're excited about it. I'm glad and honored to have this platform. I'm praying and hoping that you get a chance to listen to our esports and gaming education panel we had on Michael Babb and Kofi Alazo. Thank you, Kofi, brother, for inviting me. And I give a shout out again to Rig and to Nacon and my sponsor. I love you guys. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. Stay tuned. Stay woke. We say that in America. You probably say it in other countries as well. But stay woke. Listen. Get to know people. And remember, you can control three things. You can't control other people. You can control three things: what you think, what you do, and what you say. And on that note, Brother Stephan, you have anything you want to say to our listening audience?
No, you've just done a great job summarizing it. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a real pleasure. Excited to see what comes out of the kingdom in the future here.
Yes, and a big shout out to Florida Memorial University and our amazing President Hardrick, and Dr. Cooper and Dr. Hobbs and Dr. Hill and all the wonderful people at Florida Memorial and everyone in HBCU land. And God bless America, God bless Saudi Arabia, and God bless America and the world, because we all need healing and prayer. So thank you again for this wonderful opportunity, and we look forward to hearing from you. Oh, and if you want to keep in contact with me or learn how to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and the best way to reach me is, my tagline is what is my tagline? My tagline is Doc Spitfire 06. DOC SPITS FIRE 06. Doc Spitfire 06. Okay, that's the best way to reach me. And I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you again for this wonderful opportunity.
وأعزائي المشاهدين، مثل ما سمعتوا، عالم الإي سبورتس في السعودية بيكون أضخم وزاهر ومزدهر وحماس، كل شيء بيصير إن شاء الله في المملكة العربية السعودية مع الإي سبورتس. فإذا عندك أي اهتمام، اليوم هو وقتك. ابتدي اليوم ستريمر إي أثليت اللي هو، لا تفوتكم الفرصة تكونون من نجوم الإي سبورتس في المستقبل. والآن أعزائي المشاهدين إلى موضوع ثاني. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to another topic. Virtual reality. A lot of things are happening over there. Of course, with our platinum sponsor, Robocom VR takes us to the world of VR right now here in DGC. Let's go.